Earlier today, we got our Dynasty Deep Dive for EA College Football 26, and in today's video, I'll be discussing everything that was mentioned inside the video, and I read through the entire gridiron notes, so you don't have to. I'll go over some of the major talking points there as well, and at the end of the episode, I'll go over some of my plans for Dynasty Mode on the channel this year. One of the additions that they talked about pretty early in the cycle was the real coaches, which I think is going to be pretty cool having those guys on the sidelines and in the game. I know they didn't get everyone. They didn't get Bill Belichick. They didn't get Deion Sanders, to my knowledge, but they got most of them, which is a big deal. In terms of playbooks and coaching archetypes, it seems like there's a lot more strategy behind it. The decisions you make with your archetypes are extremely important, and the playbooks are now varied with nearly 3,000 new plays being added into the game. Let's discuss some of the coaching archetypes. So it's the same three base archetypes as last year: recruiter, motivator, or tactician. But as Kirk kind of described throughout the video, and then it goes through more detail here in the gridiron notes, it seems like the decisions you make are more important. It can be a little harder to get certain attribute points, but your maximum level is also higher than it was. And you can level up quicker and earlier within the first couple of seasons in becoming a pretty good coach and pretty good in your set archetype sooner rather than later. Coordinators in the coaching carousel will play a bigger role for you as well. Hiring good coordinators, unlike this guy, will probably help you out quite a bit, and the coaching carousel is a lot more advanced. You're going to see a lot more of the moving parts, just as we do throughout the college football season, how one domino generally leads to another. We're going to see more of that compared to college football 25. And then coach progression, as I kind of hinted on earlier, the maximum coach level has been increased from 50 to 100. And it describes how every coach is a little different. They all have their strengths and weaknesses. Nobody is perfect. Some guys are better on the recruiting trail. Some guys are better in terms of their game day prep. And other guys are better in terms of player development. You can kind of design your coach to really emulate how you want your football team to be. As I mentioned earlier, coordinators are a big part of that, and it's going to be a lot more than just clicking a button to hire an offensive and defensive coordinator, many of whom, just like the coaches in the game, are the real coordinators currently across the country. You're going to have to be strategic with picking your coordinators, and as they get good, they're probably going to look to leave, trying to get head coaching or better coordinator opportunities, and it's a consistent cycle, as we see in the college football coaching carousel, much like real life. So the decision-making that you make early in your Dynasty save file, designing what type of coach you want to make, will have an impact on how your coach, how your team, how your coordinators will develop in the long term. I think making important decisions early in your Dynasty is good because, well, your decisions should matter. There should be an impact on what you want, and it seems like that's the case this year. The trophy room. This is really cool for Dynasty, Road to Glory, Road to the College Football Playoff. You have your own trophies based on what you've won throughout the College Football 26 cycle. I think everybody universally is going to think this is super awesome, and well, that's because it is. You also have a college football history tab. You can look at the prior national champions, prior award winners, dating back to the 1800s in the Stone Age. All that stuff is cool, but the number one thing I cared about this year was recruiting, specifically the transfer portal, which I thought was not executed very well last year, but a lot of the things that I want fixed have been fixed. One of the big changes is that instead of having a few hundred players in there, there's going to be more like 2,000, roughly, which is a lot more like real life. There are thousands of players who enter the transfer portal every year. That should be the case in the game. I like how there's a lot of really good players in the portal as well. There was one photo inside of the gridiron notes with guys like Jeremiah Smith, Dylan Stewart, Arch Manning, Colin Simmons. Maybe that's not realistic. I don't think Jeremiah Smith will ever transfer from Ohio State, but I do think you should see 90 overall players transferring because we do see that somewhat commonly in real life. Maybe not Jeremiah Smith, but others. Pretty much every top transfer has a playing time deal breaker. I have been begging for this since like September of last year. Playing time should be a deal breaker for every highly rated player, and it seems like it is for the most part. You'll also have a lot of customization within the portal. You can kind of control how many players for your team or other team are likely to leave. I know I'm going to have those sliders cranked up pretty high because I want there to be a lot of action in the portal, just as there is in real life. Deal breakers and player grades can be dynamic as well. Look at a 3-star recruit here who develops into an All-American. Their standards should increase, and if their current school doesn't follow those, they should enter the portal, just as we see in real life. And all the highly rated players seem to care about playing time, which, as I said earlier, is a big, big win, because every guy who's at least an 85 overall should have aspirations of playing in the NFL. And you can't make the NFL without playing in college. As I said earlier, that was the number one thing I wanted for College Football 26. It's clear that EA is listening to the community in terms of their requests. Let's move forward a little bit. Let's talk about player progression and managing your roster once you recruit players onto your team. There's a lot more to it this year. The training results look a lot better. You see what each individual attribute has gone up by. I don't think that was the case in College Football 25, so it's a lot easier to understand how much players improved in a certain area, which guys had a really good offseason for you. Development traits can now increase as well, largely based on performance, which I'm quite excited about as well. Although I do have questions about how EA is going to pull this off, since good performance can be kind of subjective. So I'm going to be more patient rather than excited about that one. Physical attributes, they talked about specifically in the notes how certain abilities are going to matter more. The best players are going to move like the best players. Jeremiah Smith, Ryan Williams, those guys are going to feel like the best players in the country. Manual player progression is here. I know a lot of people have been wanting this. You have a lot more control in which areas your player gets better in. I think that's a pretty big win as well. Last year, it was all automatic. This year, you can kind of dictate how you want your players to develop. Recruiting is largely the same as last year, which I think is fine. I think it was a pretty good system. It was easy to understand, but complicated enough to feel interesting and not really get boring. But there are some good changes, including location-based recruiting. The closer a player is to your school, the less it's going to cost for a visit, and vice versa, which should be the case. If you're a school in California, it should be easier to host prospects from California compared to, say, like New York. It seems like they put more of an emphasis into close recruiting battles as well, which I think is going to be pretty interesting. Last year, it was more so just the player narrowing his list down from 8 to 5 to 3, but now it seems like once the player is down to a couple of schools, those battles are going to be amplified, as we kind of see in real life. Generally, there's the school you expect a player to go to. It's always interesting when they go to the school that they were not maybe crystal balled to go to. The quality of life just seems a lot better overall. You can see your list of positional needs, and it seems like it's going to be easier to manage. They did a lot with wear and tear, which I'm excited about. I think last year it was a good idea, but it wasn't really executed well. This year it seems a lot deeper. The quote, "not all hits are created equal," I think is pretty spot on, because a small hit you take in week 9, already feeling battered and bruised, could easily be worse than a big hit you take on in week 2 when you feel fresh and full of life. There's season and career health, which you're going to have to manage. As players rack on hits throughout the year, that bar is going to go lower and lower and lower, and by the end of the year, they might not be fully healthy at all. It'll affect their play, just as we kind of saw with Riley Leonard in the college football playoff, and it'll matter throughout your career as well. And I think especially on this channel, given that we have the Madden component with these players going into Madden, that can easily affect their draft stock. There are sliders you can switch around for wear and tear as well. I'll have full slider sets for everything within the first few days of the game. So I like that health is going to matter from year to year, and it seems like there's a lot of strategy behind it. Again, I don't want to get too excited. I want to see how it plays out, but the idea and the principle of this looks really good. There are other smaller but worthwhile additions, including protected opponents. You can protect up to 2 opponents per year despite specific divisional alignments. This is going to be so convenient. I wish we had this last year in the Kansas Dynasty. I had to switch around the conferences a lot to make sure Kansas would play against TCU this year in the regular season. I'm not going to have to do that. Another thing I'm not going to have to worry about is formation subs. With Cornell Teamer and Ty Lord and all the running backs we've had, I had to switch it out in the depth chart play-by-play manually. Now you can switch guys around with formation subs, which is a lot more convenient. And I'm excited to see all these new archetypes and positions as well. Another big change inside of Dynasty. Along with Madden this year, we have new updated positional terminology, which has been needed for years. Edge rushers, Mike Sam and Will linebackers, nose tackles, lawn snappers, gadget receivers. I'm excited to see these archetypes in the game because it feels a lot more like, modern day football compared to the Max Crosby's and Matt Milano's being listed at the same exact position. For my online Dynasty friends, I have good news for you as well. Crossplay is now in College Football 26, so your Xbox and PlayStation friends can all be in the same Dynasty together. There are also some other quality of life changes. It seems like they've done a lot of overhauling with the sim logic, with tiebreakers, which is going to be nice. I know they patched it a lot throughout last year, but it seems like they've done even more work with it this year. I think there's a lot of good changes to Dynasty Mode this year. I'm especially excited about the overhauled transfer portal. For me, I think that's easily the biggest thing that I'm excited to test out. We're only 2 weeks away from the game. We're getting really close, and because of that, I've put a lot of thinking into what I want to do with Dynasty Mode this year, which teams I'm potentially interested in using. It's kind of hard to figure out a team, though, because as I've said in the past, I do plan on simulating a few years into the future to where we have entirely fictional rosters, because last year we used the real rosters, which was fun, but I don't really want the same crop of players entering the NFL again. I want it to be a different group of guys, so because of that, I'll be using entirely fictional rosters. Many of the players on the teams might potentially be subscriber-made players, so join the Discord. The link is in the description if that's something you're potentially interested in. So even though I can't really decide what team I'm going to use until I get the game, simulate 5 or 10 years in the future, and see what the rosters look like, I still want you guys to be able to have an input on who I potentially use for Dynasty this year. So rather than a regular vote, I have created a short questionnaire. It's not super long. It should only take you like a minute or two to fill out. But the questions here entail: what type of team are we looking for? Group 5 rebuild, power conference team, what conferences are you interested in? And then I've put together a few groups of uniform color schemes. Obviously, uniforms are a big part of college football. Some of the teams in here I'm interested in. Other teams here are potentially decoys to throw you off. But I want to see what uniform schemes you guys like the best, because obviously in terms of college football, that matters quite a bit. So I'd appreciate if you could fill that out. That would help me a lot in terms of figuring out what types of teams I should look for when I do my simulation once I get the game. Hope you guys enjoyed. Make sure to leave a like. Make sure to subscribe to the channel if you are new for more College Football 26 content. Peace out.